Bro, I'm literally so pissed. I had an hour of footage, but no audio. No audio. My freaking mic was not on. We're doing this again, bro. I think it'll be fine because I think I was nervous on the first one. What we're doing today is a book review. It's a book by an author called Brendan Slocum. It's called The Violin Conspiracy, and it's about a black guy. It's about a black guy who's a violinist and sort of like overcoming the feats of like racism and discrimination. It's sort of like a coming up story. It's also like it's like a whodunit. Yeah, it's just all around. It's a good read. So Brendan Slocum, he's a music educator. He went to UNCG. He's also black and he also plays violin. So the reason we're doing this review today is because I am also all of those things. I'm black, I'm a guy, and I play violin. So I just wanted to sort of reflect on some of the experiences that the main character and the author sort of experience in the book, and sort of hold it up to the things that I've had happen to me in the classical violin world. So let's do a summary. Let's do a freaking summary. So the book starts off in the future. Raekwon McMillan, who is called Ray throughout the book because sort of, I don't want to say like, see bro, this is why I get nervous filming these videos, because I don't know, I feel like weird saying that stuff is discrimination or stuff is racist, but like because of the potential discrimination he might face for being named Raekwon. He might experience some issues being named Raekwon. That's why my name is Sydney. Like, that's literally the reason my parents named me Sydney, is because my dad's named Jamal and he had issues with his name and employers and stuff. So that is already like a kind of an accurate trope of having a black name. So anyways, his name is Raekwon McMillan. He's a violinist. He's an up-and-coming violinist who's 3 months away from the biggest competition, the biggest classical music competition in the world, which is the Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow, Russia, right? 3 months out, his beloved Stradivarius is stolen from him, and the only thing that he has left of it is a ransom for $5 million Bitcoin, and he has to like figure out how to move, how to operate without his Strad that he's been playing on this whole time in preparation for the competition, right? Then after the thing is stolen, it goes like back in time. It goes back in time to his youth, and basically talks about like, yeah, he's like a kid who really likes playing violin, but he's too poor to like afford his own violin. He basically just doesn't have at least like the financial resources to support his dream of being a violinist and playing violin. One Christmas, his grandma gives him a violin that's been sitting up in her attic for like years and years and years. And this violin belonged to his great great grandfather, who was a slave. So his enslaved great great grandfather, which is wild. He gets his violin, and then in college, he finds out it's a 17th century Stradivarius, bro. Isn't that wild? So then with that Strad, he gets like publicity. Like, people find out that this black dude, I'm going to say black dude because like, how many black people own Stradivariuses? He gets like a lot of like opportunities. He gets really good at violin. With all this new stuff that he's experiencing, his family like turn on him. They become like ops, bro. Like, they are trying to sue him at the same time as he's like preparing for this competition. They think that they are entitled to the instrument, and so they're trying to get like the money for the instrument. And then also there's like the family who owned his great grandpa comes around saying that the instrument is theirs. So they're also trying to get the instrument too. So like, he has this brilliant new thing, but like also it comes with like a lot of like people clout chasing for this freaking violin. So at the end, with him doing well at the Chai competition, he gets second place with the instrument that he was not preparing on. So I don't know if this is what the author was trying to say, but I think the implication is that if he had his Stradivarius, he probably would have won. But like, he didn't win with his instrument. He won with it. But like, I don't know. I think that's the idea. But anyways, so yeah, back to basically like the whole book, like the book rating. Back to the rating of the freaking book, the actual book review. I give this book 9 Stradivariuses out of 10. There's a reason. So it's a great book. First off, it's just a great book. But I think when approaching this review, I was thinking like, how do you even do a book review, right? So I think just asking, what did this book set out to accomplish? What was the main message of this book? And I know it's hard to do that with novels because sometimes a novel is just there to be a story and not necessarily send like a message or anything. But I think with this book in particular, like it being about a black violinist, like a very specific demographic, I think it set out to sort of send a message in a way. On the side of just like telling a great story, a compelling story, it did a great job. I appreciated the pacing of the book because it sort of had you waiting to like figure out what happened to the Stradivarius. Like for a good chunk of the book, like you're basically figuring out what the Stradivarius is while you're waiting to find out who freaking took it. Because I mean, for like an average person, they're not gonna like really know the value of a Stradivarius or like how important it can be to somebody. So I think giving that context was a really good element. Second, on the precedent that it's a book about a black classical violinist, I think it accomplishes the task of spreading awareness or like giving perspective on the black experience in classical music. I don't want to say the black experience. I'm going to say giving perspective on what a black person might experience being in the field. Yeah. No. I'm not going to say that either. It accomplished the task of spreading awareness about what is spreading awareness about what a black person will probably experience in their classical music career. I think that is the most accurate. Looking at the numbers of things, the statistics of things, I think he went based off of the general black experience. The issues that he went over are common issues, and yeah, we're going to talk about them. So I think what I'm going to do, there are 3 main points that I think that are important and sort of Ray's experience. And so I think what I'm going to do is basically hold Ray's experience up to mine and see where we line up, where we don't line up. And where we don't line up, I'm going to try and concede a little bit and say, like, my experience is not like everyone else's. So we're going to start off with the first point, which is financial barriers and accessibility. So I'm actually going to start off with saying that I'm very lucky. At first, I had a family that could afford like a decent violin and good lessons and afford to like get my bow rehaired, buy new strings, buy new rosin, get my bridge adjusted, get a new sound pole, like all these things. It literally costs like thousands of dollars just to keep your playing in tip top shape. And so I was lucky to have that growing up. And then fortunately, when I went to music school, somebody literally just approached me and was like, "You're gonna have this for free. I'm gonna give this to you." And that was a blessing because I didn't have a college caliber instrument, and instruments can get hella expensive. And somebody approached me, a maker approached me saying, "I just made this thing. I want you to play it." And luckily I was able to get it, and I play it, and I freaking love it. And I thank you God every day that I got blessed so hard by this stranger. Yeah. From my experience, I was lucky. I did not have as many financial barriers. As for Ray and as for the general black community, I feel like the barrier can be pretty daunting. Just simply the numbers. Like the black poverty rate is 19.5%. Contrast that with the white poverty rate, which is like 8%.
That's some Europeans circling around the prince. I don't have to pull off the shoddy.
Where it becomes a challenge is like the odds are stacked against you in terms of money, but then you're basically held to the same standard as everyone else when you have like a much higher chance of being impoverished. It's just like there's like a discrepancy there. So for a lot of black people in for a lot of black people in the black community, bro, what the fuck? No, for a lot of people in the black community, it's just not realistic to go to art school. Like it's more realistic to go and make money instead of like going to art school and like getting better at an instrument or getting better at music. And it's like a very privileged thing to just say, hey, like I am valuing my advancement. I'm valuing my advancement in music more than a high paying job, when the high paying job can freaking like raise you out of poverty or help those around you or like feed you. And I'm not saying that you can't do that with an art degree, but I'm just saying that it's just way less likely. It's just way less likely. The second thing is imposter syndrome, right? Talks a lot about how he feels like a fraud, or like he doesn't say that specifically, but just like there are a lot of points where he just feels like fake or like he just doesn't belong or stuff like that. And I feel like to this sentiment, there are 2 points. One of which is, again, the statistics, like what's the percentage? Like 3%, 2.5% of orchestra players in the U.S. are black. So there's that aspect of it. And so like you like go back to Ray's past and he's at regional orchestra. He is one of the only black kids. There are only 2 other black kids. So like I guess taking that statistic, you can assume that 97 other kids are either white or Asian or another race. And so I think one part of that is that just like the physical aspect of it, of just like looking out into the sea of classical music and being like, wow, like I'm one of the only people that looks like me. Like there are so few of us. And then the second aspect of it is like feeling like, am I actually good enough to be here? Because the book talks a lot about, or it makes a lot of references to affirmative action, not affirmative action in a positive context. Affirmative action as like an insult. So if you don't know what affirmative action is, it's basically this piece of legislation that tries to prevent discrimination in the hiring process and promotes a more diverse workspace, right? And you would think like, okay, like freaking affirmative action, that's a great thing, you know, like you're getting rid of all these hateful practices that kept like people of color outside of the workplace, one of which is your name, like I said earlier, like him being named Raekwon. But anyways, in this context, it's bad. So basically this is him at regionals, like we were talking about earlier, and one of the people at Ray's school gets placed behind Ray at the seating audition.
Your trust,
yeah, dramatic. But he says, Mark's eyes were narrow. How the hell did you make it? He said to Ray. Is this an affirmative action audition? So there's one. And then 2 is he just got a gig with the Chicago Symphony, which is ridiculous. If you guys don't know anything about Chicago Symphony, it's one of the big 5 orchestras in the United States. Like it's like the real deal. And so Ray says, or like the narrator says, if this was affirmative action, if Ray was getting ahead only because he was black, then he'd take it. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. So there's like the physical aspect of it, of like looking out and not seeing anyone that looks like you. But then there's also the aspect of it being like, damn, like, did I get in because I'm good, or did I get in because I'm black and they need to reach a certain number of black people to not get canceled on Twitter or like something like that? Like, am I good, or are they just trying to reach like a diversity quota so that the space looks more diverse? So yeah, those are 2 things that have to do with the imposter syndrome bit. Okay, and sort of the last one is racism / discrimination. You know, I think I'm gonna tread very carefully here. Like I don't like I know what racism is, but like I still don't even want to ruffle any feathers, bruh. But here we go. I think this is gonna like matter to the conversation. Before you're a lawyer, banker, you're a freaking person that lives on planet Earth. And in the eyes of society, you are a person that has a race associated with them, bro. Take away my instrument. To someone who doesn't know me, I'm just walking on the street. I'm just a black guy, bro. Like, same goes for the author, or same goes for Ray. And I think that, like, in the book, it talks a lot about that. Like, despite him being like a brilliant violinist, and like a really talented and hardworking person, when brought in the face of society, like, or just when you go outside, you're just still a black dude, and you still have to like face all the regular stuff that a black dude will have to face in terms of like little minor racist comments, or like little bits of discrimination, or like encounters with the police, or all that stuff. And so before I get into that stuff, there's stuff that has to do with being a musician, and sort of like the racism in the workplace, in the classical workplace. So yeah, so I guess on page 151, he gets this gig. I think it's his first solo gig. So basically, he's about to go up, and the orchestra members are talking about him. As they're talking about him, they're saying, not sure why they're even letting this guy play. Ray backed into the curtains that cloaked the rear wall. I don't even think he's played more than one concert with anybody in his life. It's just a PR stunt, the concertmaster told them. The only reason he's playing is because he has a Strad. You know how people try to get at least one black person to play with a major group at least a couple times a year? It covers all the bases. And then the kicker. At least it's not Black History Month. There's no telling what kind of circus music they'd have us playing. Laughter. Like, bro, let me tell you something. Okay. There was an orchestra cycle where we played freaking Florence Price Symphony Number 3. It got so much hate, bro. You can talk to anybody who played in that cycle. They're taking a fat dump on Florence Price Symphony Number 3. I don't understand it at all. I think the symphony is fine. And I get that, like, when you put it in the medium of a symphony, you put it up to other great symphonies. But, like, when you put it up to, like, a freaking Mahler symphony, it looks dumb. Like, I get it. I understand. That's, like, the common sentiment, like, with even, like, okay, William Grant Still, Samuel Coleridge Taylor. It's made up of different stuff than Tchaikovsky. It's made up of different stuff than freaking Brahms. So, like, when you hold it up to them, it just looks odd. And then there's this one part. Ray is about to, he's talking to some orchestra administrators about programming. They're trying to appeal to him, and so they're talking about having him do a freaking Gershwin program. Another orchestra administrator says, so that's why we feel it would be best if we feature someone like you who plays music he's familiar with. I don't want to say it's ignorant, but like the thing about Gershwin, he tries to implement he tries to incorporate like jazz elements into it, like swing and stuff, and like they're good pieces, but it's just not. It just like leaves a weird taste in your mouth if you're black, and like and then on top of that, he wrote this opera called Porgy and Bess. I think Porgy and Bess is like, it's catchy, it's like that lovable opera, and like it's American opera. It's an American opera, so like it's in English, and so like it's kind of like theater, but like the singing quality and the caliber of singing is like way higher. The thing that makes it so controversial is that like he incorporates all these super negative black stereotypes into it, and so that's why it sort of like makes you kind of wince. It makes me kind of wince, at least, when people are like, "Oh, you like Gershwin? You heard like you like Porgy and Bess? Like what if I don't, bro? Then what?"
That's that real music, man. Come back home, motherfucker. See how real it is, man.
Okay, so in the latter part of talking about racism and discrimination, he highlights the nuance between northern cops and southern cops. That difference between the sort of overt, blatant racism in the South and the sort of like covert, undercover type racism that happens in the North. The Baton Rouge scene, which is crazy, bro. I don't want to say it's crazy because like that like happens, but like it's an intense scene where he's on his way to, I think it's Louisiana State to do a gig or something, and this cop pulls him over, takes him out of his car, tells him to get on his knees, puts his hands behind his back, puts a gun to his head, threatens to shoot him, detains him, takes him to jail. He spends the night in jail. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's like a truly intense scene, and it's kind of infuriating. Like if you actually read it, it's just like, what the hell? Couple that with the Boston gig that he takes at Jordan Hall. He sort of encounters these cops. They needed the Marxes, who was the family who's trying to claim that the violin was theirs. He needed their like sort of approval to be able to get sort of peg Ray, handcuff him, and even then, like, they were trying not to make a scene because there were people around sort of like recording with their phones, and it sort of touches on that concept of like the cops in the North are kind of just as bad, but with a little bit more accountability, just because, you know, there are people watching. They see what happens. They see what happens when it goes south. I really liked the way that he sort of highlighted that difference in either experience. So that's why I give it a 9. There were some weird things. There were some just few personal preference things that made the experience of reading it a little bit off-putting. And it's just very minor, just like a 1-point knockoff. Like, and the first one is the semi-cliche pieces and their like descriptions of like how they're being played, or like what he was experiencing when he was playing them. It read like a romance novel, and it was like supposed to like turn you on or something, like turn you on to the experience, but it was just turning me off, bro. Like I really just couldn't get into it, me personally. Like, I know niggas in real life that like talk like that. They like talk like that, and they like are able to like to talk about the music in that way freely. But I feel like I could, but I just keep it in my head because when it comes out, I just sound like a freaking cornball. But I do understand that with the semi-cliche pieces, the Tchaikovsky and the Chardas and the Mendelssohn, like, it's supposed to like reach a wide range of people, and those are the pieces that the average person is most likely to know because they're like common classical pieces. So I understand that, and I also understand that the descriptive aspect of it is meant for the readers who like detail. I understand that, but it's just me. It's just a me thing. That's part of why I'm taking off 0.5 points. But let me read some of these descriptions, and maybe you'll like them, but maybe you'll like see what I mean when I say I can't get into it. Okay, so here's the first one. Okay, so he's about to play Zagan. So if you're a violinist, you know what Zagan is. If you're not a violinist, go check out like the cadenza at the beginning. Ray opened the case and launched into Ravel's Zagan, one of his favorites. The opening adagio starts out rich and full, slightly mournful, announcing his presence with passion and wistfulness. And then it lightens, begins to dance, bob along in the current of life. Excitement and great joy competing, soaring, grateful, and alive. The violin took over. He wasn't playing notes. He was making music the way Ravel intended, the way Antonio Stradivari intended, the way he always dreamed he could play. He poured out into the air what he was unable to put into words, his gratitude for this violin. This video is tripping right now, but I'm back. So he's playing Vivaldi Winter for his grandma. And here we go. The melody started slow in the night, a plucking of strings, snowflakes falling dreamily, one flake at a time, and then a burst of cold air poured down on them, and flakes eddied, biting in the chill. The north wind coursing through the living room. Dawn came, like glistening off a frozen pond. A bird flew down, hopped on new snow, looking for seed. Bare trees reached to the sky, achingly blue in the cold. Skaters swirled on ice. Skiers coasted down long cold runs. Then back to the house, to the warmth, to the chocolate thawing on the stove, and mittens steaming in front of a fire. Like, I don't know. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. There was that aspect that I couldn't get into, and then there was also just like some of the quotes were like bro, some of these quotes were kind of weird, but they just like left a bad taste in my mouth. Like, hold on, let me go to 176 right quick. So this is actually Ray's response to the scene where they're like talking about how he would like Gershwin or something. In response to that, he says, That shit is dope, yo, he told them. I fucks with some Mendelssohn. I'ma rock that shit. Playing them arpeggios and shit is my jam. Can't wait to come. Anything but that Gershwin shit, yo. Every time I turn around, somebody be trying to get me to play that fake black shit.
I beg your pardon?
And like, bro, I understand that it's supposed to be like mocking of their ignorance. But like, yo, like that was damaging to the black community, bro. Just that quote, like, I know it's a book, but like that was ridiculous. On top of that, there was another quote that's later on in the book, and it's on page 280 when he's playing Tchaikovsky with a Russian pianist. First off, he says, the Sarasate was just effing fun. A gypsy delight that began slowly and stately and soon progressed into something so fast that he thought poor Miriamna might have a coronary trying to follow him. Guess these Russians have to work harder to hang with the homies, eh? Like, what does that even mean, bro? Like, this just made me cringe so bad. Like, I know he was trying to be, like, clever or, like, trying to be like, black people can do this too. But, like, I just cringed so very hard. Brenda, if you ever watch this, it's nothing personal. It's just, I thought it was corny, and that's it. Also, when he gets to the Tchaikovsky in his performance, he says, and finally, Tchaikovsky, of course, let's be clear here. Ray may have looked like a black American, but secretly he was Russian. Secretly, he spent his life ladling borscht and nibbling pelmeni. Vodka, not blood, surged through his veins. He was melancholy because it was always winter in St. Petersburg, and jovial because Muscovites are a good-hearted people who love to laugh. Like, bro, you don't have to be like, I know he was trying to get into character and maybe he wasn't like trying to make it seem literal, but like just be a nigga who can play Tchaikovsky. Like, you don't have to like fake like this Russian heritage. Like, I get it, you're trying to get into character, but just maybe you just don't gotta do all that. Just be a nigga that can play Tchaikovsky. I will say, other than those few things, it's still a 9 out of 10 book. Like, it's still a really good book, and I think you should read it. It gave. I think at this point, I want to talk about one of the reviews that I saw online. It's from a user called Helen Hennessy. And what she says, or what Helen Hennessy says, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl or just a person. The book was good, blah, blah, blah. However, around a third of the way into the book, Ray's toxic family and the oppressive racism he faces becomes very painful to read and becomes repetitive and at a remove. What happens to the characters reads like a newspaper article, and I never felt I knew or was experiencing alongside the characters. That's the freaking point of the book going over Helen Hennessy's head. Oh, that was kind of mean. But you know what? That's what I'm trying to say is, like, if you read this, read it with an open mind. And also, maybe it's like not meant for you to like understand it on a personal level. Maybe it's just trying to portray an experience or an injustice that is foreign to a lot of people. And it doesn't have to be about you, nigga. Like, not everything is about you. It don't have to be about you. He's just trying to tell you about an experience he and the main character had. There's a message meant to be sent that something is wrong and that people will not generally see, or there's problems that people will generally not see in this specific field, in this specific demographic. So just because it doesn't happen to you does not mean that it doesn't happen at all. And I know they're gonna be people that I know there are going to be people that are gonna be like, oh, the racism is exaggerated. It's for like the dramatic effect of the novel. It's supposed to like entice the reader. It's not real. Boom. The author's note. This is real life. All like the experiences had by Ray were experiences had by Brendan. All right. The cop shakedown scene that was based off of a real thing that happened to the author. Like, that's real life. And on top of that, he says in his author's note, in a music history class, my professor told us that black people played Chopin better than white people because of the embedded jungle rhythms in our blood. And if that's not crazy enough, he incorporated that into the story. When Ray is being coached on having a stage presence by this famous white guy, he basically asks Ray if his people are known for their jungle rhythms, and says that before he gets on before he performs, he should get on stage and do a freaking tribal dance before he starts playing, as a nod to his African ancestry. Like, that's crazy. And you're reading that and you're thinking like, bro, what is this dude on? But like, that's just what people say in real life, bro. Like, people literally do that and say that and think that way. I think he's just trying to portray like these racist things that you think are so crazy and outlandish aren't really that crazy and outlandish when you are on the experiencing end of it and not just like hearing about it in the ether, you know? The book is called The Violin Conspiracy by okay, I'm recording. The book is called The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Bye bye.